Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our opening webinar. So it is the first from our new biodiversity ecosystem specialized committee. So my name is Susie Xueqing Zhen. So I'm the assistant director of the Asia Forest Research Center at UBC. So I'm responsible to coordinate the biodiversity and the ecosystem specialized committee. So we are very proud to have launched the Asia Pacific Young Scientists Association in 2020. So if you haven't done yet, please visit our website and register as a member. So I will post the link in the Zoom chat box. So please feel free to ask me any questions in the chatting box. So before starting, I want to inform everybody that the webinar will be recorded, and after editing, it will be available on our online video platform. So I will briefly introduce today's agenda. So we will have a few welcoming remarks from before formally starting the webinar. So you will hear these remarks from Professor Guangyu Wang. So he is the director of the Asia Pacific Research Center and associate dean from Faculty of Forestry at UBC. And Ms. Mei Yuan, she is the division director of capacity building from APFNet, and Professor Jeff Sire, so he's our biodiversity and ecosystem honorary chair. So afterwards, so our biodiversity executive chair, Professor Xuefei Wang, will take charge in hosting the webinar. So for better sound quality, please keep your microphones muted during the whole presentations. So now let's welcome Professor Guangyu Wang for giving us a welcome remarks.
Thank you, Susie. Good morning and good evening, everyone. And today it's my great pleasure to invite Yongping Yang, and the director of the Xishuangbanna Tropical Botanical Garden, and to give the keynote speech in this virtual lecture series of the Asia Pacific Young Scientists Association. If you don't know the Xishuangbanna Tropical Botanical Garden, I should tell you this is one of my favorite gardens. Even I was in Vancouver, North America, I have visited there twice in the last 10 years. I believe Dr. Yang will tell you more about the Botanical Garden. The Asia Pacific Young Scientists Association is based at UBC, is sponsored by UBC Asia Forestry Research Center and also the Asia Pacific Forestry Education Coordination Mechanism. The aim is to create the platform for cultivate the connection, communication, and collaboration among our young forest scientists across the Asia Pacific region. As Susie was mentioned, we have the four committee under the association. That's from biodiversity and ecosystem, forest resources management, and wood science and engineering and biomaterial and bioenergy. Today is the first public talk under the Committee of the Biodiversity and the Ecosystem. And in this committee, we are fortunate to have Dr. Jeff Sire, professor from UBC Faculty of Forestry, and we also have the Professor Xuefei Yang, and he's from Kunming Institute of the Botany, and as the honorary chair and executive chair. So the establishment of the association is largely thanks to the support from APMNet. Today we are happy to invite Ms. Yuan Mei from APMNet to give her opening remark. Yuan Mei, please. You're on mute.
Maybe we can give like a Miss Yuan Mei for some time, and
Yeah.
maybe I can also go on like let her, give the opening mark later.
Sure.
Okay, so yeah, now maybe we can move to like the steps. So now because it is our first event of the specialized committees, I want to briefly introduce our honorary chair and executive chair for our newly formed biodiversity and ecosystem specialized committee. So they have generously accepted to guide our committee, and we thank them for their dedication. First, let me introduce Professor Sire. So Professor Jeff Sire is a British ecologist who began his career working on conservation programs in many American and Asia countries. So he directed the tropic forest conservation programs at IUCN. In 1993, he was appointed founding Director General of CIFR, who allowed him to live in Indonesia for the following 9 years. So he was a professor of conservation and development at James Cook University in Cairns, Australia. He has focused on the conservation and development problems of tropical moist forest in the Congo Basin and Southeast Asia. So as a professor at UBC, he's interested in integrated approaches and to natural resources management, landscape approaches, and integrating science into natural resources decision making. So now, Professor Sire, please give us some like opening remarks. Let's welcome Professor Sire.
Thank you very much, Susie, and very nice to see Professor Guang Yu, Professor Xu and Professor Yongping, who's going to be our speaker today. So I'm very happy to see you. I'm very honored to be the honorary chair of this association. Even though I don't come from the Asia-Pacific region, I have actually worked in the Asia-Pacific region for the last 40 years in various capacities in quite a few countries. So I was working with the Royal Forest Department in Thailand for a few years in the 80s, with the conservation programs in Myanmar. I've been into all the Southeast Asian countries. I've lived in Indonesia for quite a long time, and I still spend quite a lot of time in Indonesia. That's where I am right now. So I'm very much interested in the Asia-Pacific region, and I'm really interested in giving young scientists the opportunity to gain professional development and to be effective in doing better science and hopefully doing science that contributes to forest conservation. So I think this association has a really important role to play, and I'm happy to give it my support. I'm particularly pleased that we're going to be linked to Kunming Botanical Garden. I was last there about in the 1980s, 83, I think I came there, and I haven't been back since, but I hope I'll get to visit sometime soon. But it's a very pivotal place for mainland Asia's biodiversity research, very interesting place. So when I was at IUCN in the 1980s, we actually had a project in Xishuangbanna, trying to conserve forests there. So I guess I have 3 things I want to say for this association that I think are important. I'm really interested in what's going to get decided at the Conference of the Parties of the Biodiversity Convention when it meets in a few months' time. And I'm very concerned that a lot of the sort of high-level diplomatic contributors and activists are very obsessed with trying to increase the area of conservation. There's a lot of talk about this 30-30 target. And that troubles me. I'm much more inclined to think of more precise, targeted targets that the CBD should set. They should be driven by species and ecosystems, not by percentages of land area. I think that's an unhelpful way to set priorities. I also think, and one of the reasons I'm unhappy about these 30% targets is that they may apply in a country like Canada or Australia, but we're talking about South Asia and the Pacific, which is where a huge proportion of the world's population live. The economies are growing very rapidly, and there's a massive demand for land. So we have to be very strategic in deciding which land we're going to conserve and how we're going to conserve it, what incentives we're going to provide, how we're going to make that function properly. So I think it's much more a question of quality than quantity in setting conservation targets. So I hope we can, over the coming months, have some discussions about that and get people involved in that debate. And the other thing that I'm sort of involved in, I actually gave a seminar a couple of weeks ago in Chongqing University about the Belt and Road Initiative, which is seen as a sort of threat to the environment in some parts of the world, but I think it should be seen as an opportunity for the environment to diffuse through the region models for sustainable development that do meet people's economic needs. That, they're not inconsistent with development. We're not going to stop development. People want to have development. We have to have a model for development that is optimal for biodiversity. And I see that getting good things to happen throughout the Belt and Road network is a very positive thing that we should be thinking about. And many of us are in countries where that Belt and Road Initiative is going to have an impact. So I think that's all I've got to say now, but I'm very supportive of the initiative. I'm very happy that Professor Guang Yu and APFNet and Susie are doing this, and I look forward to being in contact with you frequently over the coming months. So thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Professor, for your welcoming remarks and generous offer again. So now let me introduce Professor Xue Yang. She is a principal investigator of archaeobiology and natural resources management from Kunming Institute of Botanic Garden, the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and also the group leader of Southeast Asia Biodiversity Research Institute in Myanmar. So it is an international scientific research and education institute. She has a multidisciplinary training that includes ecology, global change, biology, natural resource management, biodiversity conservation, fungi ecology, spatial ecology of Kunming Institute of Botany since 2006, and has been promoted to be a group leader of ethnobotany up to now. She has published around 70 research articles and 3 books. So now maybe we can invite Ms. Ye Yuanmei to give welcome remarks. So now is your internet okay, Yuanmei? Oh, we still can't hear you.
We cannot hear you, Yuanmei. Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, just to do some rehearsal for twice. Just now. Dear colleagues and participants, good evening and good morning. Thank you for inviting us to participate the Asia Pacific Young Scientists Association activity. under COVID-19, we are getting used to the online study due to the international travel restrictions and difficulties of meeting in person. With the changing situation, we at APFNet think that the current priority for our activity would be provide more opportunities, more online opportunities for members to keep on communication, sharing best practices, updating the latest progress regarding the forestry education in the Asia-Pacific region. Today, we are glad to see that our colleagues are making efforts by launching and conducting the Asia-Pacific Young Scientists Association and some activities to provide the platform for young forestry scientists and scholars. We hope that the AYSA will explore more trending themes such as today's biodiversity and ecosystem relevant to botanic gardens, especially in Yunnan, attract more foresters' engagement and could contribute to the overall objectives of our programs. I believe every participant will learn something new from this webinar today. Thank you.
Thank you, Yunpei, for your nice remarks. And I also noticed Chuyu also here. So thank you, both of you, to participate our event, and also the APFNet for your great supporting our works. Yeah. Okay, so next I will give my voice to Professor Xuefei Yang, our executive chair. So she will host the webinar. So thank you and enjoying. So Professor Xuefei Yang, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Xueqing, and thanks Professor Wang Sayer and also Professor Yang for your nice introduction and opening remarks. So this is the first webinar meeting for our ecosystem, biodiversity and ecosystem theme. So it's our great honor to have Professor Yongping, who is the director of Xishuangbanna Tropical Botanical Garden, Chinese Academy of Sciences, to give us this opening seminar. So let me have a little introduction to Professor Yongping. I believe you already read his brochures, and then I will introduce something not covered in that flyers. So Professor Yongping acquired his bachelor in Lanzhou University and got his master degree in Kunming Institute of Botany. And then he became the deputy director of Kunming Institute of Botany, Chinese Academy of Sciences, and now currently as the director of Xishuangbanna Tropical Botanical Garden. Professor Yongping has very rich biodiversity and plant-related research experiences and covering a wide territories. Firstly, he was working in the third pole, the Tibetan plateaus for many years, and now he's moving to the tropical area of China in lowland. And he also has lots of international working experiences with a specific focus on Asia Pacific region. He's the board member of ICIMOD in Nepal, and so he has lots of experience in South and Southeast Asia. And also he was also the board member of ICRAF in Naypyidaw. So not Naypyidaw, sorry, Nairobi. And then now he's the director of Southeast Asia Biodiversity Research Institute of Chinese Academy of Sciences. So, and he has lots of experiences on the global biodiversity conservation. So it's, as you already know, that the COP15 meeting was hosted in Kunming in last year. So he has some, he attended that meeting, and also will share with us some of the information, especially focusing with the botanical garden, how it will contribute to the biodiversity framework targets in the post-2020. So with this little introduction, let's welcome Professor Yongping to give his presentation. Please, Professor Yang.
Okay, thank you very much, Xishuangbanna, for your introduction. First of all, I would like to share my, yes, can you open the sharing screen? Susie, Professor Wang and Professor Jeff Tsai and Xishuangbanna and Yuan Mei and all. Thank you all of you for your invitation and the introduction and the arrangement for me to this morning's talk. Let me check. Okay, no, I think I can. Okay, now I got it. Can you see that my presentation?
Yeah.
It's coming. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Okay, Professor Wang and Xishuangbanna and the other. As Xishuangbanna already mentioned, and about my background, and so 2 years ago, I was joined to the Xishuangbanna Tropical Botanical Garden. Last May, I was appointed to the director of the garden. I was glad to hear Professor Wang mentioned your experience in the Xishuangbanna Botanical Garden. We hope all of you will come back to the gardens. So, Xishuangbanna also mentioned the first part of the COP15 was held in Kunming, southwestern China. And so today my talk actually is more how the botanical garden can make more contribution for the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework tackling. And some part of this, the work is about the botanical garden, but most is from very general. Yeah, so as you know, it's the global biodiversity conservation in the past decades is we especially moved from the RG's decade and 10 years ago, and now it's to Kunming. So I will highlight what is the target we achieved, what not, why. And then it's linked with the botanical garden work, is how much we have done is in the botanical garden for the conservation. And then finally, it's a general suggestion for its botanical garden in future, how we can follow it. And yes, once again, it's a little bit information about it's sorry. I have to learn how to make. The first part of the COP15 actually is not only COP, but also it's the Cartagena particle on the biosafety. This is the 10th meeting. And then it's clear is the Nagoya particle. This is the 4th meetings in this. Unfortunately, because it's the pandemic, the first part of the COP15. Thank you for your patience. I didn't realize that this is I was lost in the internet. So it's so now can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Great. Yeah. So so today, this morning, I will introduce it's the global biodiversity conservation from the edge to Kunming. Yeah, as you know, it's almost 12 years ago, is the COP10, and it was held in the Aichi, Nagoya, Japan. And this is COP10. And after that, it's an international, it's the committee, it's the setup, it's the countries, the Aichi biodiversity targets, which I will not go one by one. Is you can see is but our highlight is from the target 11 to the 15th. So this is the very ambitious the target compared to 12 years ago. Is but how we have reached the target, and in 2020, before the COP15, is the United Nations is published a report for the global biodiversity. We say the Outlook 5. And from this report, it's globally, it's none of the 20 targets have been fully achieved. And although the 6 targets have been partially achieved, especially it's like the chapter 9 is the invasive the alien species control, and it's a protected area increased, improved, and there is a Nagoya Protocol is enforced and operated. And then is the national report and also knowledge sharing and finance resources. But here our little is see, we see the different color. It's the 20 targets. The yellow means it's partially achieved. We can say it's a make progress, but it's not fully achieved. So it's actually it's partially achieved. The blue is only one is the elements. It's the exceeded. It's the all finished, and the green is achieved, and then it's the red. It's no significant change. So still, it's we can number of this red, and the purple is the wrong direction. The green we don't have the data. So here is I will highlight the sorrow is the target. Much bigger with is a biodiversity conservation practice, and like it's a target 11. It's by the 2020 at least 70% of the tourist and the inland water is aligned with well protected, and 10% of the coastal and the marine area is preserved. And this data will show it's actually it's the finish. It's most is the green, and then it's the yellow, and so we can see it's the amount is the 160 96 the parties is a number of missing the data, but it's still is you can see this is achieved. And then is the extinction of the known threatened species have been prevented, and here we can see it's more it's partially achieved. If we can see the yellow color, and including China, it's not it's the foreign achieved. The genetic diversity of cultivated plants and the domestic animal and the wildlife is partially achieved, and some country is really is a major target. Some is sufficient. Especially the service to the water and health and livelihood human beings is restored and safeguarded. And this is we can see actually some is even exceeded, like the China and also the countries from the South America, and most is only 1% of the parties is actually is the no significant change. And also the ecosystem resilience and the contribution biodiversity to the carbon stock. And yeah, this is quite good. It's also including the restoration, at least the 15% of degraded ecosystem. Especially I will highlight China's the commitment or engagement to the biodiversity target. We can see it's the three elements. China is exceeding target, and most is meeting the target. But still, we have insufficient rate, especially for the target. For instance, it's the sustainable management of the marine living resources. And this is China is not meet the target. And then we see the target 9 is the invested alien species prevent and control. And as I was working in the southern part of the Yunnan province, southwestern China, and in the border area. Actually, we are very much suffered from the invasive species and the degradation of the forest and the natural habitat. And then it's the targeted 10 is the pressures of vulnerable ecosystem reduced. Actually, later I also mentioned we are now is that pressures is the human disturbance and also is the climate change. The 12 is extinctions prevent. Yeah, this is also not finished. So even China is work very hard, and but still is not is the for a success factor. So, and we can see it is what we once said is that the halving the loss of the natural habitat. This completely is not the met. And the wetland and the marine and the freshwater ecosystem, even is over fish and the marine stock, those is especially is still quite serious. 14% of the planet coral have died in the past 10 years. And more serious is more than 60, it's remained unsure. So biodiversity loss is goes past. So if you see the media, it's a lot of it, the headline is about the biodiversity target. So it's a world field media thinks the target, and also 68% is outlined in the species population and so on. It's a lot of the report. Even is the senior official from the UN secretary, is the undersecretary, and also is this secretary general is of the CBD. It's especially highlight. We have the stepping up action to the safeguard and the restore biodiversity. Biodiversity at height when we make the decision on the policy and so on. So this is the baseline for the global biodiversity framework in the coming 10 years. So the world leader and all the government have to preach to more ambitious target to stop species extinction and protect our wildlife and natural ecosystem. So according to the original agenda, is the April to May, and the second part face-to-face meeting of the COP15 will held in Kunming in China. And very important agenda is the finalizing and the adoptions the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. So, but so far it's really, we don't have the postponed because the pandemic. Probably is but we are not sure this is on the agenda. Yeah, now it's quite a lot of discussion about is a newer framework, newer the target for global biodiversity conservation. You will see there is a media and also website. Is a lot. So far, is that probably I was talking about the first draft of the Global Biodiversity Framework, and this is a much highlight the series of the change of the framework, and this framework so far is highlight for the long-term goal for is 2050. Also, each goal, they have a number of the correspondence milestones, and also it's a target. So the vision to the 2050 is that biodiversity is valued and conserved, restored, wisely used, and maintain ecosystem service, sustaining a healthy planet and the people, all the people. So this is our vision. Under the vision, therefore, is the goal is well established for this framework. I will not go to one by one. Is for instance, is we much highlight is the connectivities and the integrities of the ecosystem, and is highlight at least 50% in the area. And also is the highlight to control the species extinction. Hopefully will reduce at least tenfold. This is I think it's great challenge. And then is at least 90% of the genetic diversity within the species is maintained. And the goal B is the supporting is a global development agenda for the benefit of the all. And the goal C is much highlights is the genetic resources and benefit sharing and open access. And then is the last is the gap is between the available finance and other methods is implementation goals. Is more is the mechanism. And for the 2030s, the mission is will take the urgent action across the society to conserve and sustain the use of biodiversity, and the incredible journey of benefit and so on. I would like to is a little bit 2030 action target compared with the IG biodiversity the target. This is one more. Is the 2021 is a target, and I divided is a three part. Is first is reducing this risk to the biodiversity. Is from number 1 to number 8, and a little bit I will highlight. And then is the second is meeting the people's needs. So the sustainable use and the benefit sharing. That's from the number 9 to number 13, and the tools and the solution for implementation and the mainstreaming. This is it. It's from the 14 to the 2021. Yeah, especially for the reducing is this extinction of the biodiversity. I would like to say is several is the target. Like the target 2. It's at least 20% of the degraded freshwater, marine, and also terrestrial ecosystem under restoration. And then is a target 3 is at least the 30% of the global land area and of the sea area are conserved. So we usually say that it's the double 30%. So this is a target, and then it's a target. The 4 is is ensure that active management act to enable the recovery, conservation of the species and the genetic diversity. So even so, sexual conservation. So this is I would like to highlight that the primary is a target. And there are some other is the target, like the reducing the rate of the introduction and the establishment is for it's invasive the marine species and some others. So I realized that this is a very ambitious the framework so far. It's a number of the targets is even more and more challenging than its actual biodiversity targets. So a couple of days ago, it's a Nature also published it's a correspondence article. It's especially mentioned is a biodiversity facing is a make or break here. And if this systematic change cannot happen, then they have no plan B. So this article especially highlight is we need more input, especially from the social science researcher, especially those who study is how the organizations and the government work will improve its chance for the success. And it's especially mentioned is not is natural scientist. We need more is a social scientist the input for this is a framework, especially how to manage the organization, government to take the actions. And also if some research argue, probably we would like to IPCC is we need one target or number should be the prioritized. So like there is the 2.2 degree is the temperature and some other. But the most that is found is achieve the target should is the action or the target, not just a few. And so such as the expanding protected area, yeah, this is not only is a protected area, this is much linked with the other targets as well. So this is I thought is the discussion about the global biodiversity framework. So my first part is a key message. Is the United Nations take the old plan to slow down or even much stop the decline in the ecosystem. Based on its RG target has failed. At least it's none of it is fully achieved. Like according to the IPBES, and it's still more plant, more species is facing extinction. If we see it's a lot of the discussion, you will see the target field, and partially probably is the format make the progress harder to measure. So about this smart and so it's the GBF. It's the post 2020. So far, it's not finalized. From is a different stakeholder. I have some questions. I highlight some. Is it possible to conserve at least 30% of the land and of the sea? And then how to we can integrate the ecosystem restoration, restoration, natural habitat protection, and the species recovery. Yeah, I will give examples. In the past 6 decades, almost 60 years, in Yunnan province, southwestern China, this province I believe, is where established the 362 protected area. And the percentage, how much is the 14.32%, the total area. But even it's 90 of the ecosystem is we said 85% of the rare and endangered species are protected so far. But do we really have 30% of the line can be protected? And generally for the national level, I would think it's okay. But for some province, it's really difficult. So probably it's ex situ conservation is the option. Yeah, linked with the conservation. We know it's the in situ conservation. Like it's in the national park, it's the wildlife, the sanctuary, biosphere reservoir, and the natural sacred site. And those now China's policy is not promoted more the national park. And the ex situ conservation, very clear is that like the seed bank and the cryopreservation and the zoological garden. But more important is it's protect the living plants, it's a botanical garden.
Again, so Professor Yang is still trying his best to get reconnected. Yeah, so sorry for that, and I hope everybody will be still be patient enough to get that.
Sorry, it's seems a lot of the connections problems. I didn't realize. Yeah. So it's if we see the plant diversity now is the people think it's 20 to 30% of the species is shrink and with the extinction, and especially in the tropical area, and even is the rate of the extinction is higher than the mammals and birds. So we think it's a conservation, especially in the botanical garden. It's a very important options approach for the conservation and in restore the plant population. They have the one review. It's published in the Nature Plants. It's talking globally the botanical garden is working for the ex situ conservation of the plant diversity. And BGCI member is more than 1,100 botanical garden in the world. It hosts the 105,000 species. It's about 30% of a known species diversity in the world, and more than half of the plant genera and the families as well. So, but you can see it's from the assessment. It's the net is hosted more than 13,000 species is extinction from its service. But so far it's only 10% of the net capacity is donated for the restricted species. So this is a lot of work. Even there is a number of the plant species, but actually this is not enough for its conservation issues. Very interesting is after the edge target, the botanical garden, especially Botanic Garden Conservation International, is also set up global strategy for plant conservation. It also is at 10 years, it's the plan. And the 5 objective and the 6 target where it's highlighted in this strategy. I will not go detail. But after 10 years, we go back to the target. Realize that it's still we can see color. It's green is on track to achieve the target. The yellow is a progress towards the target. The red is not a significant change. From the global the strategy of for the plant conservation, and also like the IG biodiversity target, we can see it's also it's not is all the target is to achieve. Here is they have is for the individuals the target. What have they see? The green one is really is achieved. For instance, it's an online flora of all the known plants. This is achieved. But we can see this is the extension conservation and also utilizing like there is a chapter 8 and some other is their number is if we see the color is a red color is a much part is big part that this is means the elements is not really is get to change. I will use the example is in China, and we can see is a number of is the red one is 25 to 50%. I mean it's the meet the target. That means it's a number is actually is not really achieved. For instance, it's the target 11. There's a no species of the wildflower is endangered by the international trade, and then it's the indigenous knowledge and the local knowledge is respected, and it's not. But also most of the country feel the same thing. Is that we lacked is the trained people working for working with the operate is a facility and those things. Also, my colleague also is have published a review of the China's implementation for the global strategy for plant conservation in the past decades. It's also highlight is even China is we have more than 160 the botanical garden. We can see is half is the 32 is in tropical, and then yes, 70 is in subtropical. But we really don't have any gardens in the Tibetan plateau like and also cold temperate area. And China actually is already is protected is 6% of the species in the gardens. But we need more focus on is the plants is rare and certain plant species. So the key message is that the botanical garden actually is play a great role in conservation, etc., for the species and genetically unique populations. So in the world is it's 30% of known plant species actually is not in the gardens. But currently the offers are not sufficient. Even this is make the progress, and it's a number of these especially for the genetics, the diversity conservation. This is really a challenge. So based on this, I will highlight the science suggestion for how the botanical garden in the future can adjust the targets of the GBF. We have the future, but the future with is a challenge and also opportunities. The challenge is the plant's search and extinction. This is an increase in the anthropocene. And the climate change is bringing more and more uncertainty for the conservation. And for the botanical garden, especially in the tropicals, they don't have enough botanical garden for the actual conservation. And of course, we also don't have sufficient trained people and the facility. And especially the biodiversity and the plant diversity loss also like the loss of the genetic diversity, even the biocultural diversity. So it's the potential, for the futures. The one is the finance support, including like the Kunming biodiversity funds. This is a fund that is special for the developing country. And restoration, recovering, and is a highlight and in future from the extension conservation. In China, we have a newer initiative. It's for the National Botanical Garden system. We hope this is a system will strengthen the extension conservation approach and function. So my first suggestion is we have to put the tropical plants conservation on the top or in the first. Because the tropical area is so much important for the biodiversity. It's a rich plant diversity and more tree species than any area. And intensified is the trees and extinction because it's a climate change, because it's the human activity. More challenging is in those tropical area, most of the plants is we said it's saturated seeds. This seeds is very sensitive to the dry. If the dry is very difficult to preserve in the seed bank, it's like the minus 20 degrees. So it's much, we need is a newer technology for its plant conservation in the tropical areas. Of course, I already mentioned we have very few botanical garden in the tropical area. And more challenging is the poor service, botanical service, and the biodiversity inventory. So if we see the map, we can see the botanical garden is in the northern hemisphere, is rather than in the source, especially in the tropical. The second is we have to integrate the uncertainty of climate change into all the conservation practice. That the picture is shown is recently as a windstorm is happening in the botanical garden. Because it's extremely wide. It's a lot of the tree is the damage in our gardens. This is last November. The three things is we have access conservation status, especially for the native and the local plants. And in the past 5 years, it's the Xishuangbanna Tropical Botanical Garden, with the counterpart in China. It's an initiative like the zero extinction of the plants. We do a lot of the local assessment, and there is do the extension conservation and the reintroductions in China. So this is really in the future we have to highlight, because for the living collection it's much dependent on the locality. So it's such kind of local assessment will bring more information for any conservation practice. The four is we have to protect the indigenous knowledge and the traditional innovation and the practice. So Xishuangbanna is the external partners. We realize that it's actually such kind of the knowledge is extremely important, and also we build the future for the conservation. In the Xishuangbanna Tropical Botanical Garden, we have we call it the National Cultures Museum, and we document the locals' knowledge for the plant use, and also display the plants that are used in the history. And also we set up like the edible plants, the collections. But this is some, we think in the future, we have to do more for how to protect the locals, the bioculture. The facts is we have the sample that preserved most population genetics, the diversities. You know, it's a sampling for the ex-situ conservation always is a challenge. We are not only protect the individuals, the plants, even it's the number of the plants. We have the high quality is the genetic diversities. So there's a lot of discussion is how to use the newer methodology from the molecular study, genetic diversity study, and then it's a link with the conservation. And then it's in the gardens, we have the contact like the intensive and active garden sites. In the gardens, there are many things. We have around the survival monitoring, measurement of the growth adaptation, and the phenology, the pollinations, and the inbreedings, and the genetic vector, and the reproduction, reintroduction. So this is in the future. So we have the botanical garden can make the contribution for the conservations. And the example is to show from the article, they have 4 species to be into the in situ and the ex situ conservation. And then is ex situ conservation. They feel that they don't have enough the pollinator. So this will be make the fruiting will be the problems. So such kind of research where bring the knowledge for its ex situ conservation, but also for the reintroduction. And we have adopted a variety of the multidisciplinary approach. Especially now talking quite a lot of talking about a plant mycorrhiza. This is the example from the stem. And we're not only protected in the national park, in the natural reserve, but also we can protect a small site for the special tree, special species. So this is also a new approach. And also it's talking about quality in situ, it's inter situ restoration. And so I will not go to detail, but now it's quite a number of the newer measures for the conservations. This will bring the opportunity for the futures. And then it's how to integrate the recovery and the restoration of the certain plants with the beauties, this town and the countryside construction, and also the countryside we call it revitalization. And this is a lot of the case study in the Xishuangbanna Tropical Botanical Garden. We cooperated with the company and the countries and the community, and we bring the street plant and in the gardens. So this is I think is very important. This is a very important case study for the biodiversity mainstreaming. And also I would like to highlight is that the international is not auxiliary. This is completely necessary. And Xue already mentioned Susie has mentioned Xuefei's work is in the Southeast Asia, especially our center in the Myanmar. And in the past 5 or 6 years, we did a lot of the botanical service and also the national botanical service in those areas. Also, in the BGCI, XTBG now have a consortium for the different cups, the conservations. Such kind of the country to country, region to regions cooperation is very important. Even within the country, within the province, we need a more network for the ex situ conservation. And we cannot protect one single tree in one garden. We need a more botanical garden where it became a network for more cooperations in the future. And education and the public awareness always very important. And XTBG is almost the leading role in the education and for the public and the awareness, the promotion about the plant diversities. So finally, is the stamp picture is show the botanical garden. XTBG is the first tropical botanical garden in China, and so far it's 62 years old. We have all the research facility and also horticulture gardens, and we also have the graduate program is for the international students. And so finally, is I'm feel sorry is there are some the connection problems. I hope thank you very much for your patience, and you are always welcome to our garden. Thank you very much indeed. So, okay, thank you. Shafei, I will hand over to you. I finished my talk.
Dr. Yang, nice to share your excellent talk. So, so I'm working on the national park research, and so we are facing like how to the public education, like for biological knowledge and traditional knowledge as well. So, what kind of the approach you as a botanical garden use to combine the biological knowledge and the traditional knowledge together for the public education? Is there any way you are doing? Is any experience?
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Wang. Is the first is we have the education center, and there is the educator and the teachers, and I think they also do the research and how to do the public education. So the other botanical gardens, we have really have the researcher for the environmental education, for the nature education. The second is the very good team. We call it the interpreters. They are not they are not a researcher. There is we call it advisors, and they have very good training. They are very knowledgeable. So far in the XTBG, we have such kind of interpreters for the tourists for the kids is more than 50 the interpreters. So this team is great important. They have very good trainings, and they are very knowledgeable, and even they know quite a lot of in the evening. We call it the night garden. It's in the evening, and they also like the tourist garden. So this is we think you need a special team is for the research. How to do the promotions of the environmental education in the botanical knowledge. And then you need somebody to make the bridge from the research to the public or for the kids. This is exactly like you can say translator, or you can say it's interpreters. So this is a big team in our gardens. Thank you very much, Professor Wang.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's very helpful. Jeff, you have a question, right?
Yeah, I don't really have a question. I just want to say that I really very much appreciated your presentation, Professor Yongping. I think the points you made are really important. And I think the importance of botanic gardens is underestimated, because they are places where ordinary people can actually experience biodiversity and enjoy it. So a lot of biodiversity is a bit abstract, and ordinary people don't really know what one is talking about. But if they can go to botanical gardens and see the diversity and enjoy it, then I think it does change their behavior, make them much more motivated. So the point you made about needing more botanical gardens in places with high biodiversity in the tropics and in tropical developing countries is a really important point. So there's lots of money being talked about for the post-2020 biodiversity agenda, but you don't see much money going to botanic gardens in countries in Africa or even here in Indonesia. They're not adequately funded. And so they have to be funded in ways where they achieve the sort of conservation goals. They support all these species, but they then communicate that to the general population. I think they have a much more important role to play than is widely recognized. So I'm really happy to see that you are pushing that agenda. So I appreciated your presentation very much.
Thank you, Jim. And yes, it's actually even in China. Now I would say is we have to bring the people and the plants to the garden, but also we have to bring the plants out of the garden. And in the recent 2 years, we cooperate with the local community, and we even introduce the protected plants to the community, and they are very proud of. Also, we are much like the participation for such kind of activities. So we recently have get a deal with the company Aesthetic, because they also would like to the botanical garden, the trees and plants were protected in the community, in the city's history. So this is really, I would think, we have to change it. We are on the transition fields from the government lead conservation to the public participations in the futures. I will get a question. Introduce the difference between the study and the working in the botanical gardens and the universities. Yeah, it's a botanical garden. Actually, it's the research institute, and of course, it's a university and the botanical garden. Although the thing, but we don't have the very good the complex the cultures, and more is the research. But in the botanical garden, you will have the opportunity very close to the plants and the nature. You even is the most it's a research topic, or is from the gardens. So, but a university is depending. It's more probably it's more work is in the laboratory but we are is more research in the gardens. It's close to nature, close to plants, living plants. Okay, Shirley, how is it?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello. Hello.
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I can hear the whole processes, but apparently I'm not being heard. So thanks for the wonderful presentation by Professor Yang. And I have a question. You have mentioned about the airlines for zero extinction in China. So is there any measures to achieve this?
Oh, yes. And actually, we started from the XDBG. And at the very beginning, we're from our prefecture called Xishuangbanna Prefecture. And we organized the team, and also the experts committee, and to access the whole list of the plants named in the Xishuangbanna in the Xishuangbanna Prefecture. And then we from here is more than 5,000 species of the vascular plants in the Xishuangbanna. And then we have make a short list. It's based on the distribution and the specimens record, and also the expertise knowledge. And we gather around 200 short list for this is the beginning. And then we like the do the reserve, the field reserve surveys of those plants. We make the progress. The really is we have finished is the 70% of the field assessment of this the short-lived species, and we published is more than 20 new species, and also is a new record in the field. But also is we introduced is the nearly 30 species we consider is now is the not frequently found, like there is a small populations plants. So use this opportunity. We're doing is the more is the extensive conservation for the locals and the native plant. And after 3 years, we think we can share the experience with the other botanical garden. So then we have selected 9 botanical garden all the country. From the is Xinjiang, from the is the other province in the southern China's province. So far is under each botanical garden will take only your own province is the assessment. So this is a project we think is in the future we will continue to support for the is the especially is the don't like the is the Professor Swen's is they call it is the population with extremely small populations. We are doing is the completive is the reassessment, and then from the is a short list to the field service, and then is to link is how to protect or how to do the etc. conservation. We have a very interesting example. This is one that is plants. It's in the border between the poor and the Xishuangbanna. The local population, I think, is around the 20 individual plants. But this is not is a rare or the rare species. This is an endangered species because it's a rubber plantations. And the most is natural forest is destroyed, the natural habitat is destroyed, and then this is become like the example. This is not is for the species with extremely small population. This is a small population because it's the land use change, land cover change. So this I think in future will be one is the research directions like the XTPG will continually contact.
Thank you. Any questions from the participants?
Oh, I have a question for Professor Yang. So you mentioned that like China has not achieved the target of like conserve like vulnerable ecosystem and prevent invasive like of alien species. Do you think these two targets like highly linked to each other?
Yes, I think it's really one is in China. I think is the ecosystem degradation is much linked with the invasive of the alien plants, especially is in the southern part of the Yunnan province. This is a Eupatorium. It's the invasive plants from the Mexico and it's the America, South America, and now it's become the expanding in our province. So this is the underground and the underground understored this plant diversity is actually decreased extremely faster because it's so if we see it's in the future, it's for the ecosystem, the restoration, and also it's also much dependent on how we can control and prevent the invasive species.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, please.
I would like to ask because thank you, Professor Yang, for your informative presentation. We got some new information regarding the COP15 and also some recently research outputs and progress from your garden, XTBG. So my question is, you mentioned the natural education, environmental education is more popular in the garden, and especially for the night garden activities. So I would like to know, how the COVID influenced this activity. So do you still organize this kind of activity for local kids, local people? All the activities was suspended. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's for actually it's in XTBG we have a very close relationship with in the local school. It's like the primary school and it's a middle school. One very good example is in Xishuangbanna. It's not close to the primary school. We collaborate with the primary school. This year is 14 years work together, and we train the local teachers, especially for they call it for nature's teachers, and also we have this is the school is developing all teaching material. For instance, the locals, the plant's name and habitat and the knowledge and so on. It's developing some training material. And more important is we set up it's a school garden in the primary school. And all of the students not get the knowledge from the school garden. We said school botanical garden. They also is very active in the working and is help to building this is a botanical garden. So such kind of is example is sure is our education is not only waiting in the garden, waiting the tourists, waiting the school students. We also go outside the garden, go to the school complex. And also now is around the garden, we have a lot of the volunteer from the bird watching, from in the primary school or the middle school. It's a number of students. Actually, from the start point, they learn a little bit from the researcher from the garden, and then they learn it by themselves. And it's sure it's a great interest in the nature, in the conservation for the birds and the plants and so on. So this is the one thing I think in the future is the XTBG will more focus on is setting up is a long-term collaborations with the stakeholder, especially for the school. Another is now is for the community, for the citizens, and we also have the project is the cooperate with we mentioned is the company or is the government in the city, and how to bring the plants into the city, and invited the local citizen become the conservation part. So participation is now from the public participation or the involvement is in the future where is always highlight for the education, for the environmental education. So now I think after COP15, we also realize we have a better the mainstream in Kunming in China. So more public show the great interest. on the involvement or the participations for the conservation. This is the situation. So we have to catch the opportunity.
Yeah. Any further questions from the participants? Okay. Yes, somebody is.
So yeah,
you
you can unmute. Everybody can unmute themselves now. So if you have a question, please go on. Yeah.
Any
Hello.
questions? Okay.
I have a question. Yeah. Hello, Dr. Yang. Thank you so much for your impressive presentation. I have a question about are there any measures or protocols to monitor the conditions of the endemic plants in the botanic garden and assess the effectiveness of the conservation activities? Okay, thank you.
You mean the part? You mean it's a part, like the guideline?
I mean, can you give us some examples about how the Xishuangbanna Botanical Garden to monitor the conditions of the plants and assess the effectiveness of the whole management and the conservation activities? Yeah.
Oh yeah, very good questions. There are the two parts. One is monitored by the researchers. Yeah. So it's the diplocaps, the specialists, and they will do their own monitoring. Even it's for the own research. And this is in XDBG. We have more than the 150 researcher, and of course it's more than 300 the graduate students. And those some part of it monitoring is by the researchers. It's based on their own research target. And the second is the botanical gardens is routine the monitoring. And this is linked with the horticulture sector. And each year we have we have the several kind of some is every week for like the phenological study. So every week we have it's a team, it's a monitoring, it's like the flowering, and it's the fruiting, and those is a monitoring as the first. And also it's we have the checking is how in number like the plants is died and is other damage and damaged by the insects and some others. So this is also we have is a team. So if we're talking about the monitoring in the botanical garden, this is almost is the most important work. But it's this is some is about the research. It's not but the most ordinary is by the gardener and also for the worker and in the gardens.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Any further questions? We could welcome one or two questions. Okay, if not the case, I'm very happy to make the conclusion for this today's webinar. And although we had a little interruptions from the internet broken, and also some interruptions from other people, but the whole session was completely successfully done, and we had also very nice discussion from the participants, and we give our big hands, although he cannot hear, but we give our big hands to Professor Yongping for his excellent presentation. Thank you very much for joining us and also share the knowledge and also your thinking about the biodiversity conservation after the 2020. And thank you very much for that. And for the coming year, for 2022, we would like to serve you at least 6 to 12 webinars. So we will continually to announce the different webinars, and we will welcome you to attend this webinar and to let this platform to be a good platform to exchange the knowledge, to share the information at the Asia Pacific region. With this, and I would like to close this webinar. Thank you again for your attention and joining us. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Xishuangbanna Tropical Botanical Garden.
Thank you.
Well.
Well,
Goodbye.
bye-bye.
Very nice to meet everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night.